Hi, so buddies, welcome to the new year. And I pray this new year brings in lots of beautiful congratulations, wonderful blessing, and amazing things for us all in Jesus' name. Amen. And if this is your first time on this channel, you are highly welcome. My name is Whitney IY, and you're welcome to this beautiful space. And to my OGs that have been here from the get-go, thank you so much for sticking with me, by me, okay? In this video, we're going to make this beautiful, stylish jumbo or baggy shirt that has pockets and also an elastic waistband and adjustable ropes at the front, okay? So if this is something you're interested in, do well and keep watching and do not touch the dial. Here are some of the items I will be making use of. I made use of this Ankara fabric and I made use of 1.5 yards, although I didn't get to finish it. I will also be making use of the wide elastic. Now I'm supposed to get the 2 inches wide elastic, but I could only lay my hand on the 1 inches wide elastic. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and join together to create the 2 inches wide elastic. Okay, I will get to show you how I will do that later on in this video, or how I did that later on in this video. Moving on, I have gone ahead to cut out the fabric that will be enough for drafting the front pattern, and I cut this out on fold. And to get the width for cutting out the fabric, I divided the round hip measurement I'm working with by 4. So the round hip measurement I'm working with is 40 divided by 4 gives me 10, and I went ahead to add extra 7 or 8 inches, and I used that to cut out the width for the fabric. Unfold, okay? Next step is to determine how wide I want this waistband to be, and it all depends on the wideness of the elastic, okay? So for this, I want the waistband to be 2 inches wide. So I'll place my tape at the 2 inches mark like this from the beginning of the fabric, meaning 2 inches upward is for the waistband, okay? So I'll place my tape like this on the 2 inches mark, and the next step is to go ahead and mark out the crotch depth. To get the crotch depth, I will divide the round hip measurement I am working with by 4 inches plus 2.5 inches. Now, the reason for adding this extra 2.5 inches is because when it comes to anything baggy, you need to have excess around the crotch depth, okay, so as to avoid any discomfort or any dragging in into the pom-pom when putting it on, okay? So the round hip measurement I'm working with is 40 inches divided by 4 gives me 10 plus 2.5 gives me 12.5 inches. So while placing my tape at the 2 inches mark from the beginning, I'll go ahead and mark out the 12.5 inches for the crotch depth. And this is how the tape will be placed when I'm marking out all vertical measurements. And after marking this out, I'll bring in my rule and connect dots together to get a straight line like so. So at some point while drafting on the fabric, I noticed that the markings were not obvious on the fabric, so I had to transfer it to the pattern paper so you can get to see the markings. So I'll go ahead and mark out the crotch depth, which I've earlier explained how to do that and the appropriate way to place the tape to mark this out. And this line is the crotch depth. Now from the crotch depth, I will go up by 2 inches to get the hip line. After which, I will also bring in my rule to connect the dots together to get a straight line like so. And this line is the hip line. Moving on, the next step is to divide the round hip measurement by 4 and mark it out on the crotch depth line. And I got 10 inches after dividing, which I marked out on the crotch depth line. And I went ahead to add 3 inches for ease allowance because this is a baggy pants and it is expected to be baggy big, okay? Now, if you don't want it that big, you can go ahead and add 2 inches for ease allowance or 2.5 inches, okay? And I will go ahead and mark out the exact measurement on the waistline, after which I'll bring in my rule and connect the measurement I have on the crotch depth line to the waistline to get a straight line like so. Next step is to mark out the front crotch extension. And to get the front crotch extension, I would divide the round hip measurement by 20 inches. So the round hip measurement I'm working with divided by 20 inches gives me 2 inches. Now, because this is a baggy short, I need some form of ease around the crotch extension area. So I'll be adding half an inch to the 2 inches, so making it 2.5 inches. So from the straight line here on the crotch depth line, I will go ahead and mark out 2.5 inches. And from this angle here, I'll come out by 1 inch and I'll connect the hip line to the 1 inch and to the front crotch extension to get a curve like this. The next step is to mark out the rest vertical measurements, which are the short length and the hemming allowance. So while placing my tape at the 2 inches mark, I will mark out how long or how short I want the short to be. And for this short, I want it to be 18 inches long or short. And I'll go ahead and mark out 18 inches. And I'll bring in my rule and connect the dots together to get a straight line like so. And this line is the short length. Next, from the short length, I'll come down by 2 inches to get the hemming allowance. That is for hemming the down of the short. And I'll go ahead and also bring in my rule and connect the dots together to get a straight line. And this line is the hemming allowance line. Moving on, I will go ahead and measure out what I have on the crotch depth line from the beginning to the ending and also mark it out on the short length line and on the hemming allowance line, okay? And I'll connect these points together to get a straight line like so. Now, I don't want this short to be all that boxy, so I'm going to add some shapes here and there. So I'm just going to come in by half an inch from the short length line here at center front, and I'm going to connect this back to the crotch extension like so, and I'm just going to connect it outward like this, okay, at the hemming allowance line. And at the waistline here, to conform to human shape, I will come down by half an inch, okay, and I will connect this back to the waistline like this with a slanted line. And then on the side here, at the short length line, I'll go in by half an inch, same thing at the hemming allowance line, and I'll connect this to the crotch depth line like this. This is just to give the short some form of shape, okay? And also at the side of the waistline, I will go in by 1 inch. This is also to give the waistline some form of shape. And I'll connect this 1 inch to the hip line like this. And with all of this, the front pattern is ready. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring in the fabric that I've drafted and cut out the front pattern on already before I realized that the markings were not showing, and I had to redo it on this pattern paper so you can see the markings. And after placing it on it, you can see it is the exact same thing. So you can go ahead and draft directly on your fabric and cut it out. Or if you're scared, you do it on your pattern paper first before you transfer it to your fabric, okay? It's still going to give you the same thing. It is the same thing. Moving on, it's time to cut out the back pattern, and as you can see, I have already gone ahead to cut out the fabric for the back pattern, which I folded into two, after which I placed the front pattern on it. And while placing the front pattern, I left 3 inches space up here from the front waistline on the back pattern. And to get the width for cutting out the back pattern fabric, I added 9 extra inches to quarter of the round hip measurement, okay? After placing the front pattern on the fabric for the back pattern and leaving 3 inches up here, I will extend the crotch extension into the back fabric here, and I extended it with 2.5 inches. So the same 2.5 inches I used for the front crotch extension, that is what I used in extending the back crotch extension, okay? So from the front crotch extension, I came out by 2.5 inches to get the back crotch extension. And on the center side here, I'll come out by 2 inches allowance like so till I get to the hem. And I'll bring in my rule and connect the back crotch extension into the 2 inches allowance like so. And I will get to extend the short length line into the back fabric for snipping purpose. Now I'll just cut off the excess at the hem here. Moving on from the hip line, I will come out by 2 inches on the back pattern like this. And I will go ahead and connect this to the back crotch extension and slant it to meet the front waistline, okay? But if you like having a little bit of excess fabric around the bum side, you can just come out by 1.5 inch from the waistline and connect to the 2 inches and to the crotch extension. But personally, I preferred the first method, okay? So I'll just go ahead and curve the 2 inches to the back crotch extension, and I'll make sure not to curve it too deep because you don't want it dragging into your bum. The back crotch extension does not need to be curved too deep, okay? And now I will go ahead and connect it straight to the waistline of the center front like this. Moving on the center front from the waistline, I will go up by half an inch. This is to put back the half an inch I cut out from the center front, and I'll connect it back to the side of the front pattern, okay? And from the original waistline, I will go up by 2 inches. You can decide to go up by 1.5 inch. So I went up by 2 inches, and I'll connect these 2 inches back to the center back line. And I'll also bring in my rule to connect the 2 inches to the waistline on the side of the front pattern with a slanted line like this. And now I will go ahead and cut this out. The back pattern is ready. I'll cut out the sides, cut out the center back as well. And now it's time to join or sew this piece together. So with the front patterns stitched together, I will go ahead and close up the front crotch extension using half an inch sewing allowance. And I'll also do the same thing for the back patterns. While they are together, I'll close up the back crotch extensions using half an inch sewing allowance. Meanwhile, I have gone ahead to also cut out fabric pieces for the pockets, and they are 11.5 inches long and 9 inches wide, okay? And they are 4 in number, okay? Moving on, here's the front pattern, and as you can see, I've closed up the front crotch extension. So right now, go ahead and open up the front pattern. And I would bring in one of the fabric piece for the pocket and place it on the side here, making sure that the right sides are facing each other. And I'll close up the side using half an inch sewing allowance. And I will also repeat the same process on the other side as well. And for the back patterns, I have also gone ahead to close up the back crotch extension. So I will open this up, and I'll bring in one of the fabric pocket piece and place it on the side, making sure that the right side of the pocket piece is facing the right side of the back pattern fabric. And I will close up the side using half an inch sewing allowance, and also repeat the same thing on the other side as well. Moving on, after joining the pocket piece to both sides of the front pattern, I will go ahead and bring in the back pattern, which I've also joined the pocket piece to both sides. I will place it on the front pattern, making sure that the right side of the front pattern is facing the right side of the back pattern. And I will go ahead, pin the joinings of the pocket piece together like this temporarily with a pin. So I'll pin it on both ends like this. Please watch. I want this pocket piece to have that pocket curve, so I'm just going to curve it like this with my scissors, cut out the excess out of it. To stitch this down, firstly, I will stitch from the top of the pocket like this using half an inch, close up the side of the pocket like this using half an inch sewing allowance. And on the side, I will come down by 6.5 inches, mark it on the side here. And from this 6.5 inches, I'll close up the side using half an inch sewing allowance, okay? And on the other side, I will also go ahead and create the pocket curve design that I want and cut out the excess. After which, I'll close up the top of the pocket using half an inch sewing allowance, stitch up the pocket curve as well using half an inch sewing allowance. And from the side here, I will also come down by 6.5 inches, mark it out here. And from the 6.5 inches mark, I will close up the sides using half an inch sewing allowance. After joining the pocket piece of the front and the back patterns together, the next step is to go ahead and bring in the pocket piece to the front pattern like so. And I will stitch it down to the front waistline using half an inch sewing allowance. I will also do the same thing to the other pocket piece on the other side as well. After which I will move over to the hem of the shirt to turn the hem of the shirt. And to do that, on one side of the short hem, I'll fold in the 2 inches hemming allowance and fold in half an inch at the edge here and stitch straight down on the edge. And I will repeat the same thing on the other hem as well. After turning the hem of the short, the next step is to go ahead and close up the crotch. And to do that, I'll bring the joining on the front crotch and place it on the joining of the back crotch, and I'll make sure I pin them down, and I'll go ahead and close up the crotch like this using half an inch sewing allowance. Moving on, I have stitched down both pockets to the front waistline using half an inch sewing allowance, and I've also gone ahead to turn the hems of the pant, after which I went ahead to close up the crotch using half an inch sewing allowance. Right now, I would go ahead and flip this over to the right side of the short, and this is what I have. So you can see this is the pocket, all set and ready. Now it's time to cut out the fabric for the waistband. And to do this, I will have to measure round the waistline. And after measuring, I got 45.5 inches. And I will add extra 1 inches to this, making it 46.5 inches. And this is what I will use to cut out the length of the waistband. And here is the fabric for the waistband with the length being 46.5 inches as stated earlier on. And for the width, I cut the fabric out on fold. That is, I folded the fabric into 2 to cut out the width. And since the waistband, I want it to be 2 inches wide, I added half an inch for sewing allowance to sew this into the waistline of the short. So when I open this up, I have 5 inches wideness for the waistband, okay? And now it's time to stitch the waistband to the waistline of the short. And to do this, I will place firstly the right side of the waistband on the wrong side of the short on the waistline like this, and I'll go ahead and close it up using half an inch sewing allowance. So I am going to stitch it round, after which I close up the side of the waistband, okay? And here it is. I have done the first step of stitching down the waistband to the waistline of the shirt, and I've also gone ahead to close up the side of the waistband, okay? And it's now time to create the openings at the center front through which the ropes are going to pass through. Now, if you do not intend to unstitch the openings with needle and thread, then you need to go ahead and create the holes first before you close up the waistband, okay? And you can make use of the sub video above as a guide. But as requested, if you want to unstitch the openings, then just go ahead and fold in the waistband into 2 like this towards the right side of the short. Now the next step is to go ahead and fold in half an inch at the edge like this and stitch on the edge of the waistband. And while stitching, I will leave about 2 inches space opening here through which the elastic waistband is going to go in. And then I'll continue stitching on the edge of the waistband round. After doing this, I can now go ahead and create the openings at the front. So to do that, I'm going to bring in my rule and a chalk, and I'm going to extend this center front line into the waistband by marking it out. Next, I'll bring in my tape and get the midpoint of the waistband on the straight line. From the midpoint, I will go out by half an inch on both sides, and that is where the openings will be created, okay? Now to create the openings, I'll have to be careful to make sure it doesn't touch this other side of the fabric, okay? So I can either get to just use my scissors to cut out a little bit of opening on those points, or use the seam ripper to create opening on those points like so. Now it is time to bring in the elastic, and I have gone ahead to double it up to turn it into a wide elastic. And to do this, I cut out 2 equal elastic and I joined them together at the center here with zigzag stitches. And now the elastic is 2 inches wide, which I wanted from the get-go. To get the length for cutting out the elastic, if you want the short to be a one size fit all, you just subtract 2 inches from the round waist measurement you're working with and use it to cut out the length for the elastic. Okay. Personally, this short is a customized one, so I will subtract 5 inches from the round waist measurement I'm working with and use it to cut out the length for the elastic. The round waist measurement I am working with is 32 inches minus 5 gives me 27. So that's how I arrived at 27 inches for cutting out the length of this elastic. The next step is to go ahead and pass the elastic through that 2 inches opening that I left while closing up the waistband. And I'll pass it round till I bring out the other end of the elastic through the opening. Afterwards, I will stitch up the ends of the elastic together. Now that the elastic is inside the waistband, I will go ahead and close up this 2 inches opening here. Okay, I'll stitch on the edge. Now the openings through which the rope are going to pass through on the front should be at least 0.5 inch or 0.625 inches wide. So I'm going to stitch on the elastic waistband, and in stitching on the elastic waistband, I will stitch on top of the opening and below the opening. Okay, the first stitch line is going to be above the opening and the second stitch line is going to be below the openings. Okay, and I'm going to stitch around the elastic, and while stitching on the elastic I'll be stretching it out. If you want a more demonstrative look, I did a tutorial on how to stitch on your elastic waistband. I'll drop the link to that tutorial on the description box. So right now this is me going ahead to unstitch the openings. Okay, and I am using the knotting method for this, so please watch, and you can play this in a slow motion to grasp it all. But like I earlier stated, if you're not using the unstitching method, it is advisable you create the openings before you close up the waistband. Okay, and here it is after unstitching on the openings. So I will go ahead and stitch on the elastic waistband now. So this is it. I have stitched on the elastic waistband, and you can see I have 2 stitch lines. And now I will bring in the rope and pass it through one of the opening and bring it out through the other opening. Okay, using a safety pin. But since I don't have a safety pin available, I will make do with what I have available to pass the rope round and out. And with that, the baggy or jumbo short is ready. And take note, you can actually make use of any fabric for making this baggy short. Okay, at this point, if you're still here, meaning you enjoyed this video. So if you find this video helpful, please do well to hit on the subscribe button and also click on the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. And do not forget to comment, like, share, and when you see ads on my video, please watch to drum in the support. So see you on my next video. Love ya. Mwah.